flags at Cape Kennedy are flying at half-mast on this cold, windy morning, and tight security has been placed around Launch Complex 34.
January 27th, 1967, the crew of the very first Apollo mission, Gus Grissom, Ed White, and Roger Chaffee, are going through a practice countdown. They are preparing for their mission, which is scheduled to launch in about a month.
Gus had a reputation as a real serious fighter pilot, an Air Force jockey who was really, really good. All of us young rookies really respected him. Ed was a neighbor. He lived down the street and around the corner. Chaffee was a very much beloved astronaut. He worked in the community and people really liked him.
They have many annoyances during the test. There are communication problems.
I can't hear that thing you're saying. Jesus Christ. How are we going to get the moon? We can't talk between 2 or 3 buildings.
We had problems with our procedures. The crew had reported noxious odor inside the spacecraft. Communications weren't working. Basically, we were struggling.
At 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time, all of a sudden there's a call from the spacecraft, from Gus Grissom. We've got a fire in the cockpit. There's one more transmission that's Roger Chaffee saying we've got a bad fire, and then there's a kind of a cry of distress, and the radio goes silent.
We were startled by the crew's screams, and we listened to our crew die.
By the time they open the hatch, the astronauts are dead.
We were waiting for our flight, and the announcement came out that there had been the fire and that the astronauts had perished. And that's all we knew. And so we were wondering, what in the world happened? What was it all about?
I was the one that happened to be at the office. I got a phone call from the Cape. They said, well, we've lost the crew. I said, well, they're probably down at the beach house. No, we've lost the crew. I said, well, you can't lose the crew. They're around somewhere. No, we had a fire, and we've lost the crew.
We secured our notes, the logs. Then we retired to a local bar. Many of the wives had to come in and pick up their husbands and drive them home.
And I wouldn't be surprised if somebody there said, geez, that's the end of the lunar program. We're probably finished.
Gus Grissom, the tough, wiry veteran of Mercury, 41 years old, and Gemini, was gone. Ed White, 36, our first spacewalker, and Roger Chaffee, at 32, ready for his first flight. So eager that Gus and Ed kidded him constantly. All their lives snuffed out in the moment that was never supposed to happen.
It would have been one thing if they had, the booster explodes and, something happens during reentry. All of those were things that people had mentally prepared themselves for as part of the risks of the game. But nobody imagined a scenario where you could have 3 astronauts during a routine ground test and they would be killed.
My kids, that was probably their first inclination that Dad was doing a job that wasn't all that safe. They were friends of the children of the people who died.
Many of the kids that went through this were fresh out of college. They'd never lived through such an event.
I called my teams together in mission control, stood up in the front of the conference room, and I said,
we should have seen it coming because we were not ready. Everybody was behind in their work. And yet, none of us said, damn it, stop, call it off. This test isn't going well. When the controllers went back to their offices, I wanted them to write 2 words on their blackboards: tough and competent. Tough meaning we will never again shirk from our responsibility because we are forever accountable for what we do, or in the case of Apollo 1 and our crew, what we failed to. Competent, we'll never again take anything for granted. We'll never stop learning. From now on, the teams in mission control will be perfect. And these words will not be erased until we finish this program.